Before we start, pay attention. Every time you spot trivia in this video, keep counting. Comment the final number, stay subscribed, and you could win an Amazon gift card this month. Subscribe? Good. Let's go. Several men abduct a young woman in Paris. Within days, they intend to force her into prostitution and sell her. She had traveled from the United States with her best friend, Amanda, for what was meant to be a vacation. At the time of the kidnapping, she's on the phone with her father, Brian, a former CIA officer. As he pieces together what is happening, he learns that the men who took his daughter, Kim, plan to sell her within 96 hours. The time frame leaves little margin for delay. Brian is in the United States, while Kim has been taken to Paris. He has 4 days to find her. Brian cares deeply for Kim, but she does not live with him. During his years in the CIA, his work left little time for family. The strain contributed to his divorce. His former wife later married a man named Stuart, and Kim now lives with her mother and stepfather. On Kim's birthday, Brian visits a music store and buys her a karaoke machine, reflecting her ambition to become a singer. Stuart hosts a large birthday party that evening. Brian arrives with the gift and insists on giving it to Kim personally. She greets him warmly and opens the present, revealing the karaoke machine. Her reaction is muted. Stuart then presents her with a horse. Kim immediately runs to him, leaving the karaoke machine behind. Brian observes the moment quietly.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Later that night, Brian looks through old photo albums filled with pictures of Kim as a child. He becomes emotional as he reflects on the past. His former CIA colleagues arrive for a previously arranged barbecue. Afterward, one of them, Sam, offers Brian a temporary security job protecting a well-known singer at a concert. Brian accepts. The following day, Brian and his former colleagues provide security at the event. During the concert, one of the singer's young students approaches Brian for advice about pursuing a singing career. He discourages the idea and suggests considering another path. Shortly afterward, Kim calls and asks to meet him at a restaurant the next day. Brian is pleased by the request. As the concert ends and the children leave the stage, a gate collapses and the crowd surges forward. Brian pulls a girl named Sarah out of the crush. A man approaches her with a knife, and Brian intervenes, stopping the attack and placing her safely in his car. The next day, Sarah thanks Brian and tells him she intends to support her daughter's singing ambitions, including covering the costs involved. She gives Brian her contact information before leaving. He keeps the card, intending to use it to help Kim. Brian waits at the restaurant the following day, expecting time alone with his daughter. Instead, Kim arrives with her mother. They ask for his signature to allow Kim to travel to Paris with Amanda. Although Kim is 18 and legally requires his consent for international travel, Brian refuses. His years in the CIA have made him cautious about the risks abroad. Kim leaves upset, and he does not have the opportunity to give her Sarah's contact information. That night, Brian remains awake, thinking about his daughter. The next day, he approaches her and agrees to sign the permission form under strict conditions. He provides her with an international phone and requires that she check in daily, reporting her location throughout the trip. Kim accepts the conditions and reacts with visible excitement. When the day of her departure arrives, Brian drives her to the airport. As he helps with her luggage, he notices a world map marked with multiple destinations. He realizes she intends to travel beyond Paris and had withheld that information, knowing he would not approve. Her mother tells him she wants Kim to experience life fully, even if that means bending certain rules. Brian allows her to proceed with the trip. In Paris, Kim and Amanda leave the airport and begin taking photographs. A young man approaches and offers to take their picture. He introduces himself as Peter and suggests sharing a taxi,
I wish they all could be California.
explaining that fares in Paris are expensive. They agree. When they arrive at the apartment belonging to Amanda's cousin, no one is home. Peter asks about joining them later for a small gathering, writes down the address, and leaves. Kim and Amanda enter the apartment. Amanda turns on loud music and begins dancing. In the United States, Brian repeatedly attempts to call Kim, but the calls do not connect. After some time, Kim notices the missed calls and answers. She steps into the bathroom to speak privately. While on the phone, she sees several men seize Amanda and drag her away.
Oh my God, they got Amanda!
What?
She immediately tells Brian what is happening. He instructs her to hide under the bed and activates the phone's recording function so he can hear what occurs. He asks who she has met since arriving, and she mentions Peter. Brian concludes that Peter is involved. He tells her the men are coming and instructs her to describe them as they approach. The men enter the room and take her. As she is pulled away, she shouts that one of them is 6 feet tall and has a moon and star tattoo on his hand. The line then goes silent. Brian understands that someone else has the phone. He speaks clearly and states that if the kidnappers want money, he does not have any, but he possesses skills developed over a lifetime. He tells them that if they release his daughter, he will not pursue them. If they keep her, he will find them. A man responds, "Good luck," and ends the call. Brian immediately goes to Lenore's house. On the way, he contacts his former colleague Sam and asks him to analyze the recording for identifying details. At Lenore's home, Brian asks Stuart whether Kim has any enemies. Stuart says she does not. Lenore breaks down and urges Brian to bring their daughter home. Brian instructs Stuart to book a flight. He leaves for Paris. Sam later calls with the results of his analysis. The kidnappers are Albanian. The man who spoke on the phone is named Marco, the leader of the group. The organization targets young women traveling alone, abducts them, forces them into drug dependency, and sells them into prostitution within 96 hours. After that window, recovery becomes extremely difficult. Brian boards the plane and replays the recorded call repeatedly, focusing on the voice that said, "Good luck." Upon arriving in Paris, he goes directly to the apartment building where Kim was last seen. He enters quietly and reconstructs the events based on the recording. Under the bed, he finds the phone he had given her. It has been damaged, but the memory card remains intact. Outside the building, he examines the card and reviews the stored images. Among them is the photograph Peter took of Kim and Amanda. Brian studies the photograph taken at the airport and notices Peter's reflection in the image. He confirms that Peter is the same man who approached Kim and Amanda. At the same time, Peter is seen approaching another young woman on the street, offering to share a taxi in the same manner. Brian intercepts him and demands information about the rest of his group. He strikes Peter repeatedly, pressing him to identify his associates. Before Peter can respond, another man intervenes, allowing Peter to break away. Brian kills the attacker and pursues Peter through the streets.
The two American girls from yesterday.
During the chase, Peter is struck by a car and dies. Brian then contacts an old acquaintance, Jean, now deputy director of Paris's internal security department. He explains the situation, and Jean directs him to begin searching near a port area. Brian hires a translator fluent in Albanian and English and drives into the city, leaving the translator to wait. On the streets, sex workers solicit clients. Brian deliberately provokes one of them, prompting her to warn him to leave.
Closed lips, open lips.
Listen, if you're not buying, piss off.
No, I didn't.
A man soon approaches and demands a 50,000 euro payment as a penalty. Brian discreetly attaches a tracking transmitter to the man, pays the money, and returns to his vehicle. He listens to the transmitted conversation and has the translator interpret it. The man references a construction site. Brian drops the translator off with an Albanian English dictionary and follows the signal. At the construction site, he enters disguised as a worker. Inside, he finds a series of makeshift cells where young women lie sedated with drugs. While searching the room, he finds a girl wearing Kim's jacket. He asks how she obtained it, but she is too heavily drugged to respond. Brian removes her from the building after fighting off the men inside. Elsewhere, Jean is shown speaking on the phone in a manner that suggests a possible connection to the criminal group. Brian switches vehicles in an alley and takes the rescued girl to a hotel. He administers medication to counteract the drugs in her system and studies Albanian using the dictionary while waiting for her to regain consciousness. Once she is alert, he asks about the jacket. She explains that the room had been cold and confirms that she did not receive it voluntarily. She provides the address of the location where she was held.
She's my daughter.
Brian goes to the address and encounters two men. Presenting identification from Geneva, he claims to be a police officer and demands to see their superior. His demeanor convinces them to allow him inside. Four men are present, including one with a moon and star tattoo on his hand. Brian states that he is renegotiating their arrangement, asserting that prior agreements are void and that future operations must be conducted through him. He implies that their activities depend on police cooperation and threatens legal consequences if they refuse to comply. The men hand over money. As he exits the building, a taxi driver passes him a note bearing the phrase, "Good luck," written in Albanian. Brian recognizes the connection to the voice on the phone call. He re-enters the building and fights through the occupants. Searching each room, he finds several young women unconscious from drugs. In one room, he discovers Amanda dead from an overdose. Brian captures Marco and repeatedly shocks him with a taser while demanding information about Kim. Under pressure, Marco states that Kim was sold to a man named Sinclair, but claims not to know the exact location.
You to be focused.
Brian then confronts Jean at his home, while Jean's family is present. During dinner, Brian asks directly about his involvement. Jean admits to accepting bribes, but denies direct participation in the kidnappings. Brian demands Sinclair's address. When Jean's wife retrieves a firearm, Brian reveals he has already removed the bullets. He points the unloaded weapon at her and warns that unless Jean provides the information, his family will face serious consequences. Gene reluctantly retrieves Sinclair's address from his computer database. Brian reviews the information, knocks Gene unconscious, takes his identification, and proceeds to the location. At Sinclair's residence, a large party is underway. Brian enters and moves through the crowd, following a woman named Cynthia. Several men attempt to block him, but he disables each of them and continues forward. He incapacitates a waiter, takes his place, and gains access to a private room. Inside, a live auction is taking place. Young women are displayed while attendees inspect them and place bids. From a concealed position, Brian observes the proceedings. Kim is brought forward, heavily drugged and barely able to stand. Brian presses a gun to a bidder's head and forces him to complete the purchase. Once Kim is transferred to the bidder's custody, Brian attempts to remove her from the premises, but he is struck on the head and loses consciousness. He regains awareness outside the building with his hands restrained. Sinclair approaches and asks why he is there. Brian tells her that the last girl auctioned was his daughter and asks for her release. Sinclair responds that the transaction has been completed and cannot be reversed. She orders her men to attack him. After she departs, Brian frees himself and overpowers the guards. He confronts Sinclair, shoots her in the hands and feet, and demands to know Kim's location. Sinclair states that Kim has already been placed on a ship and claims she does not know its destination. Brian runs to the docks and sees Kim being loaded onto a departing vessel. As the ship begins to move, he commandeers a car and drives alongside it. Approaching a bridge that spans the waterway, he times his movement and jumps from the bridge onto the deck of the ship. A fight ensues with several armed men on board. Brian neutralizes them one by one. He eventually reaches a room where an older man holds a knife to Kim's throat. Brian shoots the man and secures her release. Kim embraces her father, visibly shaken. She apologizes for not listening to his warnings. That same day, Brian and Kim return safely to the United States. But the main question is, how many trivia did you count? Don't forget to comment.